Welcome along to Nailtopia, Inside with the Insiders. I'm Rachel. In this podcast, we're going to talk to some of the nail industry's biggest and brightest. I want to get to know the real them. I want to know their real stories. So come with me as we take a peek behind the curtain.
Today, I'm with somebody that thankfully I had the great opportunity of a short while ago having a very long conversation with, which blew my mind at the depth and breadth of knowledge to come from that one conversation. So today I get the great pleasure of doing it again, but you all get to listen too. Today I'm with Sam Blake. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Rachel.
So let's start with what you actually do now, where you are in your career now.
Where I am in my career, I'm on about phase 3 or phase 4 of my beauty industry career. So I am the safer salon geek. What I do now comes from my origin story, really. So I am an occupational and workplace health and safety trainer and advisor, and on the side consultant. It sounds really, really boring.
It does.
But
it sounds very complicated, is what it sounds.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm studying my second qualification at level 6. My first, unfortunately, the company went bust as I was due to be finishing. So yeah, I do my due diligence in every avenue, but I just didn't look at the non-competition cases.
Oopsie.
So it was a really well-established company, Ofqual regulated, qual. I'm going to call it proper health and safety qualifications of what I do.
Yeah.
So at present, I am, and God help me, Rachel, setting myself the task of finishing MVQ level 6 in 3 months.
Oh, in 3 months? Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, degree level stuff, you know.
Just bang that out in the morning.
Yeah, just you know, when you sort of think, I'm a mum, I'm a wife, I'm a carer for my 90-year-old mum.
Yep.
You know, it just becomes this, but you got to do the things that you got to do.
I'll just do a level 6 while I'm at it.
Exactly. Because the bottom line is, I'm not going to walk the walk without doing the knowledge.
100%.
So thank you for the compliment of saying that I've got an abundance of knowledge. It comes from 4 years of reading, learning, doing CPD with this pivot, and I do call it a pivot. So I help solos, small businesses and businesses within the salon sector and clinic sector to create safe spaces. So yes, I do the boring but necessary, the whole compliance stuff, but I've got a very maverick approach, and I always have done, on the way that I see things and look at things. I am neurodiverse. I have dyscalculia, or dyscalculia, which is a number form of dyslexia, which probably means I've got a few other isms that are kind of sitting there.
Yes.
But I've just always been, and I'm left-handed, so it's a brain thing as well. I've always been able to see things that other people necessarily don't see.
Yeah.
So yeah, health and safety, I call it health and safety reframed, because the way that I taught, and I'm guilty of it, I taught for 16 years, the way our health and safety is taught in our industry, in my opinion, lacks greatly. And where I am today comes from the nobody checks us, nobody inspects us, so we can get away with blue murder, through to the lack of, and it's better, definitely in the nail sector as well, getting proper information about what safety and compliance, not just going to call it compliance, what those two things mean. And I'm very into the health side of health and safety. So yeah, everything from mental health awareness, training, and being trauma informed, to be able to manage ourselves and our clients and a team if we've got them, right the way through to, yes, your risk assessments, but trust me, my risk assessments are like insane. Because once you've done the training and when you've got that type of mind, you can see stuff
everywhere.
People necessarily don't within their business. So it's a business risk analysis as well, not just a health and safety risk assessment. So I think that's probably the easiest way to kind of, it's not even 60 seconds to summarize what I do.
Simple as anything, just like that.
Just like that. But my ikigai is education and training. So yes, there are a lot of what I call suited and booted coffee drinking firms out there that just do the bare minimum, but that's not what I do. I really get involved with helping somebody with their business as well as doing their compliance. So
yeah, I don't think there's much point doing something like that if what you're going to do is just hand it over to them.
Well,
give them all the answers, so to speak.
I don't necessarily, don a rubber suit and a whip and come in and turn around and tell you you're doing it all wrong. This is what you should be doing. Yeah. There's no sort of health and safety dominatrix stuff going on, which is the impression of what I do. The sort of whole thing of what you do. It's what you've got to do. But I always argue that health and safety law wasn't written for our industry.
No, it doesn't feel like it, does it?
It just wasn't. Our industry didn't exist in 1974 when the Health and Safety at Work Act was created, and it was created for high risk industries where people, get maimed and killed, right? Yeah. So my whole argument is the interpretation of what we should be doing within the customer service, how we serve our clients, and how we look after ourselves. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different thought process, I think.
Yeah. So let's go back then, all the way back to the start, because you said about how what you do now is very much influenced from your origin story. So let's go to that. Let's talk about the journey that brought you to this point.
Oh my days. Well, I've had a career and a wonderful career in many, 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 many parts in the industry. I'm White Tights Brigade, so I trained in the early 90s.
Yeah,
when you had your plugs and your white tights and your white uniform with a pink sash with your name embroidered in pink on it. And I trained in Birmingham, so even then, so I get the whole kind of like bimbo thing. So I can remember being called into my head of years office to say, "Why are you going to do beauty?" Never forget it. You got into the local sixth form. Why are you not going to the sixth form?
Yeah.
And I just turned around and said to him, "You've obviously never heard of the lipstick effect. And this is the biggest growth industry in a recession. And it's something that I'm interested in, that I want to be a part of." So I kind of blew the myth straight away of we're all a bunch of bimbos out the water with him. But what I always strived to do was to train in the best environment that I could train in. So as a little 16-year-old, I popped myself on a train. I was really lucky at that point. I've got older parents. My dad was 91 when he passed, so he was retired or taking early retirement when I went to college, luckily. So he used to drop me off at the station, and I used to travel an hour on the train and then 25 minutes walk up to the college. And had the most wonderful experience. I say it's kind of like a university experience, but at college, because I was in the city, I was traveling in, there was all that sort of aspect of having the social life with it as well, which I'm looking back, that wasn't something that I was thinking about, but it really did make the whole experience even more rewarding.
I think if you've got that experience and it's not something you're enjoying, it does make it harder to be in love with what you're doing.
Exactly. But I was the era where Star Nails had come out, and to say I think that what you guys do in the nail tech world is an absolute art form. I'm very good at creating upside down spoons on people's fingers, and I scraped that assessment, and it was literally the only assessment that I scraped. My thing was hands-on, so I did a SIBTAC MVQ, was one of the first to do that, and had some really, and I didn't realize it at the time, some really great trailblazers and people who sort of set up. So how we've got our Marion Newman now, I had at the time a brilliant educator called Dawn Myrna, who was one of the people who set up the original MVQ. So it's that retrospective looking back, my God, was I lucky? I lucky? So did spa, did beauty, did 3 years hair and beauty, because what I actually wanted to do was fashion and photographic makeup and theatrical makeup. But never got there because they cut the course the year that I turned up. So I'm all ready to do wig making and everything else. And Because I know you're on 3 years hair and beauty, and I was like, okay, then let's see where this goes. And I just fell in love.
Yeah,
with putting my hands on people. I think
it's quite a personal. Anything to do with the beauty industry, I feel, is quite a personal connection with the person you're with.
It
Because
completely.
you're like with nails, like I'm holding people's hands all day. It's quite an intimate. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's quite an intimate thing. You're holding on to somebody you've never met before sometimes.
Exactly. And the power of positive touch is something that I don't think we can ever underestimate.
No. No.
So I think, again, I was lucky very early on. I kind of twigged that, even though I was so young, you could see the benefit in people's faces and the way they thanked you afterwards, even doing case studies at college. So, yeah, it was just a brilliant time. But I always knew that I had this kind of goal path. The one thing that I wish I'd done that I never did was go on a cruise liner. And that was because the naivety of being young and having a boyfriend, you didn't and I think it's that background as well of being pushed to do something, being encouraged, let's say, rather than pushed.
I was offered a job in Selfridges and didn't take it because I'd got a boyfriend here in Sheffield. And you look back and you go, oh, what should have, could have.
The first thing I used to say to all of my students. So that's fast forwarding, but yeah, just you do what is going to make your life grow, and what's going to grow you as a person. So yeah, my early doors was really lucky. Did the whole working in a little high street salon, but I knew by the time I was 21 that I wanted to manage. So my whole kind of purpose was to build my skill set up. In order to do that, and I did it. By the time I was 21, I was managing, and I never really looked back from that point. I kind of worked in a lot of different environments, different size businesses, and again, felt lucky. Was managing one of 2 salons that were multi-award winning. There was a magazine back in the day called Health and Beauty Salon Magazine, and was lucky that the owner of that business, she was on a sabbatical. She was the most amazing advertising agency exec, but was also an interior designer. So this, again, felt lucky. All the environments that I worked in at that point, after the kind of like initial sort of small stuff, working in the sweatbox room, not having a lunch break. I always say, actually, that's where I think my IBS got triggered. So that brings me onto the kind of health side of health and safety. Being in those,
we're all guilty of that, though, aren't we? Hairdressers of not drinking enough water, nail techs of not eating,
not sitting down to eat. That's a biggie for me. You'll see me put posts out reminding people to sit down to eat. Unless you've got digestive issues. But yeah, it's that we look after everybody else, but we don't look after ourselves. So yeah, and just had this just amazing time within this group that came in and bought out the salon and did amazing things, like treated royalty and celebs and was part of the hit squad, meditated in a top London store in the window and fell asleep and woke up having about 30 Chinese tourists taking photos of me. I am the quintessential nut job. If there's like a bit of PR to do and you want somebody to do a bit of a stunt, I can't say I'd be there now with it, but back then it was like, wind me up and watch me go. I loved it. But I didn't realise I was learning marketing and how to serve. So that's a big thing for me. In our industry, you're serving. We're in hospitality, really. We're serving the customer. But I had some really crappy experiences. Some that made me ill, like I say. Some that totally burnt me out at a very young age. And I think part of that as well, when you're employed, you don't know how to say no. I think it's another thing. So again, I kept going back to a conversation I'd had with one of my college lecturers where she kept saying, you need to teach. Because again, at the time, I didn't realise I was sitting helping a lot of my friends who, didn't quite get the academic side, let's say. And I just had a way of making it so that people could understand. And she just said to me, you need to bring this back to teaching eventually. So yeah, sort of roll forward a few years, and just decided, actually, yeah, I need to put something back. So did my sitting guilds in further education, and then went and did my Cert Ed and my A1 and V1, and spent a good decade and a bit in FE. Loved it. I think it gets a bad rap.
Yeah. I wonder why.
I think because of the lack of understanding of how tied your hands are. I can remember having a heated conversation coming from corporate. So who'd kind of bought the salon out and who I'd worked for up until that point was corporate. It was people who'd had backgrounds in Coca-Cola and Unilever and Forte, Group International Hotels and Regis, and you learn a different way of doing things, a different mindset. And it was just something that I think further education to a degree is probably a little bit archaic in the way that they think about things, maybe. And that's not the teams. I always think the kind of senior management at the colleges don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So it can be a real struggle to kind of, even get retail. It was insane. So I think from the point of view of members of staff in FE, I salute them, because I wouldn't want to be doing it now.
No.
I think the pressures are
unbelievable
immense.
now. Yeah, unbelievable now. Anything outside of normal school does get a bad rep, because especially nowadays it's so much harder, because the students even from 1920 have got a clear mindset of who they are, and they're like, I've done schooling, I don't want to be told what to do. And they don't really, I don't think sometimes that they understand that actually we're here to help you. My husband jokes, when he went to college, he did fabrication engineering. When he was at college, his tutor said, if you don't learn, I still get paid. Whereas in school, they didn't get paid unless they were doing a good job. The tutors at the college were like, I get paid if you don't learn. You're the one that's going to lose your job, not me.
Yeah.
And I think further education sometimes gets a bad rep, because it's like, oh, well, I don't really want to be here. But if you want to further your career, you have got to do further education.
I just think our industry is missold. I think it's missold at a secondary school level.
Yes.
And I just think part of the bigger issue is that there's a lack of understanding about the science and the STEM and the whole anatomy and physiology science side of what it is we actually do.
100%, 100%, yeah.
I mean, the eyebrow that I get when I say what I do now, and I'll get off of people who've known me for a very long time. They go, but you're a beauty therapist, and I'm like, just don't put just in there, because you and me will fall out, because just a nail tech, just a beauty therapist, just a waxing expert, just a hairdresser, you don't know the half of it. And again, part of what I do now, I mean, I had everything from a breakdown when I was in further education, again, because I didn't know how to say no, but that's external factors. So hence me training to be a stress and wellbeing risk assessor. There's a lot of personal safety issues. Had some horrific conversations with people where I had no recourse to get mental health support. So there's a lot of stuff, I think, when you've been in the industry from a young age, I think, particularly.
You can't have a career that just runs smoothly. Nobody has a career, no matter what industry they're in, that just runs smoothly every day for 40 years. It just doesn't happen, does it?
It doesn't happen. But it's that knowing how to pick your environments, knowing how to pick, nowadays it would be where you're renting, how you're renting, is it disguised employment and everything else. And this is all the stuff, I call it the stuffs, that, yes, I do health and safety, but actually, because of my background, I've got a bit more of a maverick approach, because I kind of break it down. I call it the safe space balance formula. So when I was at college, I was specialising in neurodiversity, and the people who at school would be classed as underachievers. Well, I just say you've not taught them properly. You've not taught that demographic of people properly. You just expected them to conform to a system.
It's that old meme, isn't it? We see on Facebook all the time of the guy saying to the elephant, the snake, the fish, and the monkey,
yeah,
the cleverest one's the one that climbs the tree.
yeah, yeah.
It's not how it happens, is it? People
No.
are different, and if you aren't teaching them correctly, they aren't going to learn.
Exactly. So I think our industry, you know, we're full of entrepreneurs, we're full of educators, we're full of scientists. And I just think we just still get a bad rap. It's still that kind of, you know, bimbo-esque.
Yeah.
So I like smashing that out of the water.
Yeah. That bimbo thing, it just doesn't matter how many years we prove ourselves as industries, as we are still classed as that kind of not necessary, not really particularly intelligent, not particularly savvy women that are just off there doing pretty things in the corner.
Do you know what? I think that even extends to when people kind of, you know, you've got somebody who's a mum who's doing a part-time job and does part-time beauty or nails or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the juggle that woman or that man is juggling, and that entrepreneurship and just that time management, you know, it's don't underestimate and don't underrate people who are doing the juggle, because they've got the tenacity to succeed. And again, I think that's something that's quite wrong, you know, how particularly with the accredited course line, you know, somebody who's not in our world is not, you don't know what you don't know. So again, social media, I just don't like the kind of minimization of somebody because they've chosen something that isn't quite fit for purpose.
That
becomes about educating them to kind of, you know, choose a better pathway with their learning. So that comes into safety as well, you know.
Well, of course it does.
I like to be a bit active on social media and kind of, you know, drop in, you know, to just say, well, do you know what, it doesn't matter that you've done that, you've got a good starting point, let's, you know, move you forward. I'd like to see a bit more positivity in industry about, you know, signposting and direction rather than vilifying choices.
Do you think you see that a lot?
Oh yeah, when it comes to people choosing particular brands. Yeah, when it comes to people choosing particular brands, you know, it's, I mean, I sort of spent a lot of time with my local trading standards officer. In the sort of guise of I volunteer for the Federation of Nail Professionals as their health and safety, sort of one of the health and safety bods. So I kind of had a little morning up there and was just listening to how they do their enforcement and how they sort of grab things at Stansted Airport and stuff that are being imported in. But it comes back to legislation, and everybody goes on about regulatory reform in the industry. And this is probably unpopular opinion, but doing what I do and learning what I learn and working with other industries, health and safety advisors and consultants, we don't kill people, we don't maim people. So to get parliamentary change in what we do, it would just never happen. You know, we had this really sort of in-depth conversation with the trading standards guys because of those facts. But what lacks, and it's that kind of updating stuff, is cosmetic regs need updated annexes. There needs to be a little bit more tightening of local authority enforcement.
Yeah, because I don't think most local authorities have any kind of regulatory parts that come and do salons. You get them doing other industries and checking up on other industries, but we have to apply for licenses if we want to pierce ears and stuff. They come and they have a look around, but they don't come back again and make sure you're keeping to the standards.
They're understaffed at the end of the day. So an environmental health officer, you know, I work with some on projects, and they're very, very aware of their lack of knowledge, and that's being addressed. I mean, that's the other thing, you know, we don't really see what our base-linked associations actually do. And I know one of the things that particularly the FMP are hot on is, again, it's behind the scenes stuff. You know, they're working with the environmental health governance,
Yes.
in educating them about, you know, hygiene and sort of allergies and the standards and everything else. And I think that's something that when you're front facing, you kind of think, well, what do they do?
Yeah.
So I kind of really want to sort of push that point. I think that just because you don't see things happening doesn't mean it's not happening.
Not slowly working away in the background.
Yeah, and it's a long
It's definitely
slog.
needed, especially in the nail industry. There's so much talk over the last few years. You'll have seen it yourself with the FMP, that the allergens that have come through since COVID, and brands coming out of nowhere that are white labeling, coming in, like you said, coming in from Stansted and not getting the proper checks, not getting the
Look, I could talk about Chinese import and conformity marks and everything until the cows come home. It's
And I'd sit and listen to you because it's
I'm doing mini. This is kind of my thing. Like I've sat back since. I mean, that was the thing to get in. I pivoted just before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So got thrust into. Oh, is that what you do? Oh, brilliant! Come on this, come on that, and I'm kind of like, I'm early days here. So
right, yeah.
I had some brilliant tutors outside of what I was doing. Occupational hygiene experts who deal with biohazard every day, and master's degree in PPE. You know, it's a particulates and everything. So yeah, I'd say I'm pretty clued up now on the whole side of that world. But yeah, for me, and again, like I say, it's unpopular opinion, but it's knowing that the only way we're going to get any sort of shift and change, I believe, will happen when the Health and Care Act comes in for the higher risk treatments that is parliamentary led.
Yes.
And if you think about it logically, councils haven't got a pot to piss in. So how are they going to raise a little bit of money? Oh, look, we can reform the licensing. So
it's not even about reforming the licensing in some areas. There just doesn't exist any. So you've got to implement a licensing before you can reform it.
Shall I bore you to tears?
Go on.
It's the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act. And it's an act that each local authority, so if you look at the Essex Act, for example, and you look at the London Act, they're pretty good. They're pretty up on it. Other authorities, Farnham area, Rushmore Council are really good. And it comes back down to their education on what safety is. So really the checks become a hygiene check rather than them actually understanding, you know, match lamp, for example, and the reasons why you use a match lamp or a lamp that has been tested and proven to be tested with what you're using.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. The assessment point of view. So yeah, it's a big old soup, but I think, and again, being involved in the salon hygiene project that the FMP is sort of trying to get off the ground, it's kind of the origins of the food hygiene certificate. That's not compulsory. And that started off in a similar way, and then kind of, you know, as it grew, it kind of got sold out and became government and council linked.
Yeah, and we all know that now. We go out to a takeaway and we look for the salon hygiene. It's usually on the windows in restaurants and takeaways, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's independently formed from law and legislation, which is where I think what the FMP are doing, and I know the EHO, whose idea it was, who's been working on this for years, who sort of presented it to the FMP. There's legs in it, and it's the first time I've ever in sort of 30 plus years got excited
that it could be actually on the card,
that something could actually shift and change. And it you know, it's going to take 10 years. It will take a long time. But I think rather than doing all the infighting,
and there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and it makes for, particularly on social media, I think quite a toxic presence. And a not really how the industry is. I mean, you know, you're not going to walk up to somebody at the Scratch Awards and say what you'd say on social media, let's face it. So yeah, I have high hopes for a shift, let's say. But it takes, like, your listeners, it takes your listeners to go, oh, okay, I get that now. I get why I should be a member of that association. I might not agree entirely with what they've said.
But it's all going towards the same gate. So we're all headed towards the same entrance into a much better environment and industry for us all. So
my theory is always do something. Or put up and shut up.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't get to moan if you've literally just not even bothered getting yourself in the argument or not the argument, in the conversation. Yeah, I get that 100%.
So yes, I work with the nail industry, but I also work with the whole of the sector, and it's not just the nail industry that this happens in. You know, there's issues throughout, and again, that's why I will champion good quality education. And I'm not going to say off-call regulated, because that doesn't suit everybody. And again, that's quite a shocker for probably somebody like me who's in compliance to say. But there are some really good accredited training courses out there that will write their courses to national occupational standards. So yeah, I think it's learning as a consumer how to sort the good from the bad, really.
Yeah, well, and I think finding in the myriad of things that there are out there, trying to find something that suits you but conforms properly is very, very difficult. And if you can be part of something like the FMP that says, now there are lots out there, but this one we know has a really good standard. These are the ones that would suit this industry. So if you're going to get anywhere, you've got to listen to the people that know what they're talking about, rather than just Googling, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's some brilliant brand trainers. You know, I just love the community, the cross community, with a lot of the good, particularly UK main brands. I see a lot of good, positive culture there. And I just think it's sort of dialing down the marketing. Just because something looks good doesn't mean it is good. So that's our Instagram culture, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? If you see something pretty and shiny, you gravitate towards it, and you can't always just trust. Back to what you said about your marketing, you can't always just trust marketing.
No.
That the marketing is what it says it is, and that you're getting what you think you're getting. But then, who do you trust?
So I mean, this is the thing of
advice from all quarters, really. I feel you've got to take as much advice as you can from as many places as you can, and then you can make an informed decision.
I love being a bit of a Jiminy Cricket. I'm kind of the conscience on your shoulder. And it is, my inbox is open on the Safer Salon Geek Facebook page. Now I get messages, not as many as I did, but I'd like to get more, of where people are kind of going, do you know what? Can you signpost me? Is this factual? You know, I'm not going to say it's compliant or not compliant, because that's not my job. But I will give information to say, right, this is what you need to check. So yeah, I think with the rise of things like the shopping apps as well, and people buying stuff from there, and you know, understanding that just because a tool's metal, you need to know what metal it is. That could have, you know, a high percentage of lead in it, for example, which is toxic. So there's not the same conformity testing, even though the marketing will say there is. You know, it's not like that. And when you're bringing something into the UK, even if it's Chinese manufactured, good companies will put it through the proper conformity testing and give you all the certs and everything, and be very transparent. So yeah,
we have to do all that with a Mocha. We have to get, for every time we create a new fragrance, we have to get our CRP reports. We have to get everything tested. Everything has to be tested, even though our base ingredient never changes. It's just a fragrance that's been added. We have to have it tested every single time we add a different fragrance to that base ingredient. And I think people just presume that because a company markets that it's been tested. How
don't presume. I always say, don't presume because something's sold that it's safe.
Yes.
Never presume that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I love small companies like your company, because it's that not cottage industry culture. That's probably the wrong way to phrase it, but it's independent kind of manufacturing and creation, that the heart and soul is going to be there, and and it's the same as the solo in the cabin at the end of the garden. The heart and soul is there in the business, because it means,
me and my husband go out for date night, we go out for tea or for a drink, and we were once out at our local pub, and we were both sat on his phones, and somebody that works for my husband came over and said, "You're out together, why are you on your phones?" And what we were trying to do, was we're trying to think up puns to call our new product.
Brilliant.
And we were both Googling, looking for puns for a new name for one of our new fragrances. It's like, actually what we're doing is we're working, it looks like we're ignoring each other, but we're sitting here throwing puns at each other until we came up with one we liked. And cottage industry is probably a little bit outdated, but like you say, small industries, them in the back gardens, those small companies that are doing something just a little bit different, but generate on the same kind of theme, but kind of making it, when you see a gap, that you go, okay, I like that product, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. What do I do about that?
But don't you think, right, our industry, and I was going to say across the board, very good at shouting out about the big brands who are already established.
Yeah.
Brilliant at doing that. But the smaller businesses who they actually are, I'm going to say, pretty crap at championing other small businesses.
Yeah. I mean, we struggle, because both me and my husband, we are not remotely good at marketing. It's like my brain just can't comprehend it. And my husband's a fabricator. He does all our mixing, all our testing, all our measure. He does it all. And I do the parts where I put the labels on and do the advertising, but I'm not very good at it. And every now and again, like Katie Barnes is magnificent. Every now and again she'll do a video where she'll be using our oil in her videos, and we'll see a little bump or a hit. But we struggle every day to get new clients, to get people to understand. And then when they find us, we get messages like, "Oh my God, I've just found your oils. They smell so amazing." Or, "Your hand cream's so great." Okay, so why are we still struggling every day to get new clients? Because when you look on Facebook and someone says, "Oh, I'm looking for a new cuticle oil," what you get is somebody saying, "Oh, this massive brand does one."
Yeah.
And it's not their raison d'etre. It's not their main product. It's an add-on. It's kind of a throwaway. Whereas me and my husband sit in my stepdaughter's old bedroom, mixing oils and smelling different percentages, just me and him. And they've just like gone, "Okay, well, we need to buy oils because we do nail stuff. We need to also have oils on our sales list." Whereas what we do is, and I get it, and it does wind me up that all the big companies get shouted about and the small ones don't. And I like to do that myself. If I find a new company or a new brand that's doing something, I like to, we put free gifts in with our orders over £50. We put free gifts in from smaller companies like the Queen of Decals or Glitterati. We put their products in so that people can find a new smaller brand. And like you said, the bigger brands, they're the ones that shout the loudest, and sometimes the smaller ones get a little bit dampened down.
Yeah, I think it's just going back to, what your own branding is as your own business, and thinking, how can you champion? So from an eco and sustainability point of view, which is another thing that I do.
We talked about that, didn't we? You were asking me about, so yeah, it really got
I was asking you about your packaging and everything, and how's it recycled and everything. But that's what you get from a smaller brand. You'll get that consideration. And again, with health and safety, we're not taught it at college, and there's kind of flashes of it, in Scratch and Professional Beauty Magazine and everything. But I kind of went, well, we need to be sustainable and we need to be promoting. So I call it marketing with meaning. So with everything that I do and teach, it comes back to it. There's always an element of marketing with meaning, because if you are attracting like-minded people who are into sustainability, and small business mindset, you've got to shout about that, but you've also got to make sure that you're not greenwashing, because there's a heck of a lot of greenwashing that goes on with bigger mainstream companies. So again, it's what I do is boring but necessary, but it's so vast in the sense of how you're buying, why you're buying. You know, I can make a business argument for anything to do with health and safety, because it's just something that, unless you sort of given that little light bulb moment, I call it a thought provoker when I'm teaching. You're not going to think that way because you're not programmed to think that way. So
and we talked about this before. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. So I think that's where the Safer Salon gig is very, very different. And I lose that all the time with the salons to the big companies, the generic companies, because I won't do templates, right? That's one thing that you'll never get, is a pack of templates from me, because it's just,
it won't work for everybody.
And it doesn't mean anything if it's not embedded into your culture and into your brand and into your operations. So yes, what I do is to protect your insurance validity, and if there's a claim and everything else, but actually it's more than that. The ripple effect that goes out into how you operate, it is vast. So I sound like a complete nut job when I'm talking about it, because
no and I'm thinking, while you're talking about that, I'm thinking, like, my brain's going, I'm applying that to a moke, but also if I think about it in the salon sense, so me and the girls in the salon sense, about what we put out into our community when we have people walk through the door. So when people come into the salon, health and safety, making sure that they can see we're keeping them safe, that, we've got all the things, we've got the fire exit, we've only got one door, but we've got a fire exit, we've got a designated gathering point if there should be an issue, we've got all the sanitation and everything on show, down to that you can see the brand on the products that we use, rather than it just being in empty bottles, in bottles with no labels on. So
which goes against posh anyway, because everything needs to be labelled.
And when we get people coming to us from other types of salons, and they'll say things like, oh, they didn't do my cuticles, oh, they did this, and oh, I can see your brands, and I'm like, well, you have to have that. You have to have them on show.
Transparency is key in safety, but it goes deeper than just the signage for the safety of the fire exit and everything else. It becomes like, how do you deal with the conversation that you're having with a client? Do you have the skills? Are you able to pick up somebody who's coming in who's being domestically abused, for example?
Me and Jilly talked about that a few years ago. We were going to try and start some kind of...
there's a brilliant course. There's a free course that Julie Pearson, who is a lash tech and she's ex-police force.
I've spoken to her at length.
Behind the mask.
It's
brilliant.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Well, me and Julie were looking at starting something similar, and then that arrived and we just went, oh, so okay, somebody's doing it. And it wasn't a kind of, oh, well, they got there before us. It was, oh, somebody's doing it. Brilliant. It's not a competition. Somebody is doing it, which is so great for the industry. Because we had that conversation before the behind the mask happened.
But it becomes, and again, it's championing the people with the experience and the training, isn't it?
Yeah, and nothing in my training.
No.
For 20 years, it hadn't occurred to me that I'd never heard any of my clients say, I'm in a domestically abusive relationship. What I'd heard was people said, in my 20s, and now I'm in my 40s, I had a domestically abusive relationship. And I said to Jelly, what are the chances that the amount of people that come through our doors, none of them are being domestically abused? And we're just not noticing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts, isn't there? It's learning to recognise when somebody needs signposting and how to do that. But then the step back from that is, how do you as a salon owner then support that team member? What have you got in place within your policy framework? And have you actually done a risk assessment on that?
And it wouldn't occur to you if you're sitting in your salon going, okay, there's a trip hazard there. And
exactly.
I wash there. And putting something in about helping your colleagues if they have a client that's dying.
Yeah.
How do you put that into a risk assessment?
Look, I was told all sorts. I had a client who'd been on holiday whose son had been pushed off a cliff and murdered while they were on holiday. This is when I say, right, I've had some real issues within my career, and
if you're in it long enough, you will have clients that will
this was when I was like 19. I'd say 19 to 23.
Yeah.
I had some proper, what could have been really traumatic conversations. But there's also things like when you haven't got the soft skills or the confidence. So again, I lump that into safety. I draw on what I learned as a teacher. So I definitely will say here, I think there's a difference between a teacher and a trainer.
Yes.
That if you haven't got that soft skill development in order to reduce a client's inner chimp, book to throw in here for everybody to read, The Chimp Paradox.
Yes,
read that. Help you manage your clients.
It's a long time ago since I read it, but I see what
Brilliant
you mean.
book.
Go read it, everybody. Go read it.
Understanding people is part of our job, again, from a CPD point of view.
I think a lot of people that are drawn into it, though, already. I think the reason they're drawn into it is because they probably are that type of personality anyway. But then what will shock you is you think, oh, I'm really good with people. I'm a really good listener. I'm a really good this. And then something really awful comes along and you think, I actually don't have the skill. I'm a good listener. I don't have the skill to actually deal with that conversation.
It's conflict resolution. When you work in corporate, and this is drawing the positive stuff, you do corporate resolution training. If you work in sales, you're taught how to guide conversation and things. And again, it's just something that I just went, do you know what? I need to do that. I need to add that into the personal safety aspect.
Yes.
So that even draws us back to, we see it all the time, can I charge the client for a missed appointment? And my brain automatically goes, well, what's your customer journey? Where's your key markers within your customer journey? So it's, safety in business isn't just about slips, trips and falls and, working from height and everything. It's that borderline of business safety in with health and safety, in with lawful compliance, which then brings me around to, diversity, equity and inclusion. It's, again, one of the things that when I was teaching, so the last college that I taught at was a private small college, but still run by somebody who, well, she still is, she's a consultant for City and Guilds, amazing educator, and our demographic were women like me. They were in general people who were on a second or third career and wanted that pivot, maybe had fibromyalgia or other issues where they couldn't do the job that they were doing, so we're coming into our sector. And I was sort of sitting there going, okay, we've got to do a lot of adjustment here. We've got to really think about the ergonomic side. So being a sports massage therapist, that's kind of where my head will go naturally. And again, it became when I was doing sort of some local coaching and assessments and helping people with their teams locally in Essex where I live. And I sort of started going around going, this isn't taught, is it? This whole kind of, we're taught to stand a certain way and sit a certain way, but we're not taught to how to adjust for ourselves. We're taught to adjust for our client. So it was
yourself at quite a bit of risk as well when you're constantly trying to make your client comfortable, but you've got to sit there for 6-7 hours. And if you're constantly uncomfortable for 6-7 hours, that's eventually going to take a massive toll on your body.
Completely. I always say time's what you do over the period of a year. So if you're using a dust collector versus an extractor, how often have you got your file in your hand? Work that out, because then what you're working out is your exposure rate. And we don't know, the long-term effects of what we're doing.
No, we don't. It's not really been an industry long enough to have that kind of data.
The product's not been around that long. But when, again, this is the other thing that I sit there going, oh my God, just look at other industries, like when people are airbrushing with gel. And I'm kind of going, I know somebody who works with you know, acrylates and, you know, working on creating beautiful tables.
Yeah.
And, you know, they have the most extensive kit.
Yeah. The rebreathers.
Yeah. Just, and it just becomes, and you're sitting there, you know, spraying away with your client and everything. You've got no extraction, no nothing, no mask, and you think it's okay to spray paint with an acrylate. Why do you think that? Oh, because an influencer online showed you and told you it was okay.
Yeah.
You know, due diligence. My favourite 2 words: do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Just because somebody's got tens of thousands of followers doesn't mean they know what they're doing. They're good at marketing. Yeah.
No, I think that's become a really big thing in every sector and every walk of life at the minute. Fact checkers, like with the election coming up on the TV yesterday, they were saying, we're the fact checkers. When this debate happens, we're going to be there and we're going to check all the facts. Who does that for us? We should be sitting there watching a video. We watch a video on how to e-file. Okay, the person that showed you how to e-file on that video, are they qualified in e-file? How many years have they been doing it? Look at other videos. Are they doing it the same way? What are their qualifications? You have to have that mindset that you're the only one that can do your fact checking, because everybody will tell you that they are in the right.
Well, I think that brings us round to the new fear factor for me of the unregulated training courses where people are setting up to train people, but they're not actually, and I'm going to call it proper teaching qualifications, proper training qualifications. You know, the number of times you see, you know, oh, it's an AET and it's not. And that is just something that I think if I can hammer home anything on this conversation, is just always check the certificate and the origin of anything that you're going to train in. Who's training you? Who exactly is that person training you?
And where are their accreditations from?
Yeah.
If it's nothing you've heard, if you've not heard of them before, and they're not one of the ones that specifically are good in your industry or what you're training for, then you might as well just be watching videos on YouTube.
Look, when you can set up an accreditation company and your own training academy and accredit your own training, that's got to kind of always be in your mind.
Whistles and bells should be flaring.
Where's the in FE language, it's quality and assurance. Check your quality and assurance. What are their processes? So it's,
I had all these conversations with my dad. He worked in adult education after coming out of, he was a minor in the 80s, and he
oh wow,
so when that kind of went down, he went back to college and went all the way up to getting his BA in I can't remember what he got him in actually. I think one of them was politics, but when I asked him about politics, he knows very little. Sorry, Dad. You know everything, Dad. You know everything. But he then went on to do adult education, and he worked in adult education for people that were coming, same as him, coming out of an industry that was losing. The industry wasn't there anymore, and retraining them. And I'd asked him about becoming a trainer, educator myself, and accrediting my own courses, and he said, you need to go to a bigger accreditor. There's no point you going through the whole process of being able to credit yourself, because it won't mean anything in the long run. It will make money, but it will be meaningless education. And I think that stuck with me to this day, that unless I am working for a bigger accreditation college, or a college that's accredited by a bigger brand, that what's the point? I might as well just be putting videos on YouTube, like I said.
It's
because at that point it's my opinion, not actual proper training.
That's the point, isn't it? It's opinion rather than fact. And again, I'll always direct people to National Occupational Standards, because you know that is the core of, let's say if you had a personal injury solicitor, so you had a civil claim taken against you, your insurers have said, nope, you've done something that you shouldn't have done and your insurance is invalid.
Yeah.
And that person goes, all right, I'm going to have a Google. Oh, look, there's a solicitor who takes on no win, no fee. Brilliant.
Yeah.
You're open. And where are they going to go? The first place they are going to go is Habia, which is the government linked body who sets the NOS. They're going to look at the NOS. They're going to look at all the Bays linked associations. Bays linked is government linked. It's our department, for anybody who doesn't know listening, in government that came about over the pandemic when we actually got given our sector. We never had a sector before. Our sector is the personal care sector. So that was a big, huge thing after them chortling in Parliament about us and everybody going, you know, forks and picks out, we're going to come after you. You know, that shows what collaboration over competition actually does achieve. But that's where a personal injury solicitor is going to go, or somebody like me, if I got called up as an expert witness, I'm going to go, okay, your baseline for everything is your national occupational standard in that service or that level that you're looking at. And if a treatment training course doesn't fit that, or you can't see the progression within that company that includes all of the options that are in the NOS, then it's not fit for purpose.
I mean, and that's just the best advice I think I've ever heard, really, when it comes to any beauty sector. Yeah.
Well, do you know what? Everybody's got access to the National Occupational Standards. If you Google National Occupational Standards, you can find every qualification.
It's not hidden, is it?
No, from mechanics through to carpentry, through to beauty, through to hair. You can see what you should be doing from a baseline point of view at each level.
And if you're on a training course and you think it's lackluster, you can then access that same information and say, actually, this training course isn't meeting what is necessary for me to be.
Well, it's in industry safety standards. If you want to put it into a code of practice, and again, I do have a little bit of a problem with all of the industry codes of practice being members' codes of practice behind a paywall. That's something I've been shouting about, because when, you know, talking to people external for industry who are coming into industry manufacturing things, let's say, you know, somebody who's manufacturing something for industry, well, where do they go? How do they know what the minimum, you know, hygiene standards are? You know, you've got your universal hygiene standards, but somebody who doesn't know isn't going to know. So we go back to you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know.
I think we could do better in transparency of information, but I also get why that isn't out there, because it means that, you know, could it perhaps dilute off-core regulated qualifications? I don't know. But yeah, I've got quite a strong political opinion on lack of transparency.
Whether it turns into like a cheat sheet kind of thing.
Exactly. So, you know, it's the way that I look at it, like the Jiminy Cricket kind of analogy. In my little part of our world, you'll always get a straight answer from me, and if I don't know the answer, I'll direct you to somebody who will.
And you know nearly everybody, let's face it.
Not quite. But, I never wanted the kind of this, you know, I've always been the educator, the person who will sit and support quietly. So it's like I said to you, this is alien to me. Put me in front of 300 people delivering a workshop, love it. The whole virtual thing, it's just, it's something you have to get used to.
But it's something we're all having to get more used to nowadays, because everything seems to be going that way. But then that creates all its own problems, which we'll probably have to do on another podcast, because that one could go on for hours, couldn't it?
And then we've got AI and everything else, and how do you know that the pictures are what they say they are with AI? You know, it just becomes a whole.
The AI thing scares the ever-loving bejesus Lord out of me, but we know we're going there. I was actually sat on the sofa last night watching a news article about AI, and in my brain I was like, I need to remember this moment right here where they're talking about the bringing AI in to help with hospitals and to help with this and to help with that, because in 10 years' time we're going to be looking back at AI like we looked at the first mobile phones and going, what did we do without it?
There was actually a program on last night that me and my daughter caught. She's 13, about it was the 2000s, and it showed the mobile phones then, and she went, "My God, it's like a brick, mummy." I was like, "Yep." welcome to
Yeah.
the world of the flesh. She said, how, look, even like the typing, how could you text? And I said, where do you think text language came from? Because you could only fit a certain amount on the screen.
Exactly.
And,
You got charged if you used over a certain number of
yeah,
characters.
yeah. I mean, for me, AI, do you know what? I want AI to basically, you know, remind me when I need something in my cupboard
Yeah.
and order it for me and get it delivered to the door, you know,
Yeah.
from a time saver point of view.
Yeah. And I saw something again, like social media is so good, but I saw something this morning that said, I want AI to wash my dishes and do my laundry so I can write and do art, not do my art and write so I can do laundry and dishes.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing, isn't it, in the States with the kind of the gel polish machines and the lash machines and everything.
My husband keeps saying, why don't you get one of them machines that prints pictures onto your nails? No, you're all right.
It's that, and we've brought it round full circle. To the health side in health and safety, that health is about well-being and about human connection.
That's it. And the going to get your nails done or your hair done or your beauty releases endorphins, micro pleasures that are integral for well-being, whether it's doing something for your beauty or whether it's going for a walk, whether it's going for a run or sitting with your dogs. You've got to do the things that are good for your mental health, which then affects your physical health.
Well,
and if that's having your nails done,
a 6-second hug releases more positive hormones than anything else. So that's where I say, imagine what a body massage is doing for somebody. Imagine what that foot and leg massage is doing for somebody.
100%, absolutely 100%. As somebody that's had lots of physical health problems over the years, getting a sports massage as I get not only makes my muscles feel better, I've had that connection with a person that's focusing only on my physical needs. And it's just so uplifting when you're so low and you feel so ill and you walk out of that room high as a kite, just feeling like they've made a difference and I'm making a difference by going there.
Look, I discovered very late on in life sound baths, vibrations.
Yeah.
And when you look at how sound works in water, you've then got to kind of go, well, what is our body made up of? In the majority. And that and restorative yoga, I wish I'd known about it. And bear in mind, I'm a holistic therapist as well. But it just becomes, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't anybody tell me that if I went to yoga and I stretched myself and I did gentle exercise, that it would actually help me not have the aches and pains that I've got now, particularly in my wrists, particularly in my fingers, you know, when you can feel where the arthritis is going to come.
Yes.
So again,
I've got that behind my thumb that did they call it the queer veins, quivins or whatever it is, behind the thumb. I just sit at night rotating my thumb like a car gear lever. And my husband's like, does your thumb hurt again? Yeah. And that's from 20 odd years of not taking care of my hands.
Would you know what I'm creating? This is a bit of an exclusive here.
I like these.
I'm because I've done a lot of Frazzle Cafe, Ruby Wax, love Ruby Wax, love all the mindfulness stuff. And being a solo working from home, I was just like, you know what? We need a safe space staff room.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea.
So that's going to be a very low ticket membership that I'm going to be putting out, where using my knowledge, because I did nutrition as well. So it becomes this kind of, I'm like your mental health first aider.
Yeah.
That if you haven't got one at work, you join the safe space staff room. And the whole point of it is about showing you how to release your neck, how to strengthen your hands, you know, looking at the people who are there. Okay, what problems are we getting? How are we feeling? So it just becomes a community-based membership that isn't about your business, but it is, because if you go down, your business goes down.
Well, that's true.
It's about that connection and that having people to learn from. When you're a solo, you haven't got that. You know, you haven't got that banter in the staff room and that decompression that you get when you're part of a team, that you can go and, oh, Mrs. Jones is coming again.
Yeah.
And I feel like this, you know, it just becomes, I used to have a positivity jar. I used to use a positivity jar all the time.
That's such a good idea.
If you're having a bad day in the salon, you just put, even if it's for your co-worker, you put something in, you know, that's nice.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people just divvy it up and take it home and read it. And that's powerful. Really powerful.
This is such a simple concept as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that's
definitely.
a social media post. That's something you share with your clients. It's the starter of conversation.
Yeah.
And you're spreading that. Well, I'll say I'm a positivity rebel.
Yeah.
No, it's.
And I think it needs, because the world is so unpositive. Everywhere you go, it's designed to make you feel anxious unless you buy this thing. You've not got the right kind of clothes unless you buy this clothes. You've not got the right kind of tools unless you've got these tools. You've not got the right kind of car unless you've got this car. Everything is set to challenge you to feel like you need something else, something more.
Nothing's about contentment level anymore.
No, nothing's about just being happy and sitting happy with yourself and your environment and what you've got, and knowing that as long as I'm happy where I am, I can be strong enough to someday be in a better place. Because I've taken that moment.
It's what's your value, isn't it? What's your value on the things that you want out of your life?
I believe very heavily in all that. I mean, I spend a lot of time getting Reiki, and I trained as a Reiki healer. I very much believe in being present in the moment and present in your life. And even I find it so extremely hard to just be content.
Yeah.
And yeah,
so it's using things like the wellbeing tree. So with teams, part of having a stress and welfare risk assessment actually becomes about culture. So again, this is me bringing it back to the health and safety. You create a safe space environment for everybody.
Yeah.
You're going to keep your team or your room renters, because it's that positive culture that I want to be in that place. That place is a safe space for me.
And I have been in places where the people around me have made me so unbelievably miserable. And it has a massive impact on every part of your life.
Yeah.
When I look back at those times, I can't see any of the rest of my life other than that was happening to me at that particular time, and how unhappy I was and how miserable I was at work.
It's corporate 101. If you've got a happy team, they're going to stay. And again, it's that small business mentality. And I understand why it is, because it's that keeping head above water, cost of living. There's always going to be something.
It's very hard, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always going to be a business threat. But it's about how you set up your core and your principles and your values, and you keep your integrity line going. Yeah, that's what draws clients. That's what draws talent.
Yeah,
people who want to rent in the space.
Yeah, your USP is you. At the end of the day, people come to see you. Yeah, they're getting their nails or their beauty done, but they choose you over the other person, either in your salon or the person up the street.
It's how you make people feel.
Yeah, and if you're basically just down on yourself and down on life, you're going to be giving that off, and people aren't going to gravitate to you.
No.
Very powerful thoughts. So let's go all the way back now, before all your origin story. What was your dream job? What was, like, Princess Unicorn dream?
Oh, well, it was beauty therapy. It was makeup, because my having older siblings, so having older parents, I was like the menopause baby, right? I was the oh, here we go, perimenopausal brains kicking in. I can't remember what it's called. Stomach ulcer. There we go. Yep. I was a stomach ulcer, according to my mum's GP, and my mum was like, "No, I'm having a baby." So my sister is 18 years older than me, and she gave me my first lipstick.
That's so sweet.
It was just, and she taught me how to put makeup on, and I just always remember her and my cousin Julie. She's since passed from breast cancer. Amazing woman. They always smell. It was like that 80s thing.
Oh, right? Yes.
The electric blue, everything on the eyes, the hairspray, the smell that used to come off the pair of them. And just, I'd watch my sister put her makeup on and do her hair, and then she felt better.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I always wanted to do. And then the other one, Ikigai, is another book to read, to put on your book list, everyone. Having an Ikigai, and knowing very early on that my Ikigai was teaching.
Yeah.
I can't say that I'd want or have wanted to do anything else. I would like to work with dogs, love dogs. So that's on my list of when my business is established and I can create some time, I'm going to go and volunteer to dog walk and things like that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So that would be my other dream job, or working with littlies. I think being with year one at school and reception, yeah, that would be.
I did that. That was my first job. When I first left school, I did childcare, and it was what I'd wanted to be for quite a long time, and I did it. But it hadn't occurred to me that somebody with chronic autoimmune illnesses being around very small, snotty children,
wow,
would be a health and safety nightmare.
But that's the thing, that somebody should have told you that, and that's that thing, isn't it? Having that.
I did an NNEB and a City and Guilds Family and Community Care. They knew I had autoimmune illnesses, and at no point did somebody say, you're going to be ill a lot, and you're probably going to have really bad flare-ups, and you're probably going to end up in hospital. No, nobody said it.
Do you know what? Actually, you've made me remember a memory. Having a conversation, because I'm asthmatic as well, but I'm allergic asthma. Again, probably a good thing that I didn't go into the nail side of the world. And I can remember having a conversation with my GP about going into the police force and being road traffic or something like that. And he just turned around and said, if you can run 100 meters at the age that you are without taking your inhaler on a hot sunny day when the pollen's up, you feel free. And I want you to go away and try it. So I had an idea of another job, not too different.
Yeah. And the police wouldn't have you'd have gone through your training, they wouldn't have actually said that to you.
No. So I never went down that route. But that's, for all my eco stuff, you would find me quite happily on a racetrack doing curb to curb in a Caterham or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So
I'd love that.
I'd be driving it. For how risk averse I am, what you tend to find with people who do my job, controlled risk.
Yeah.
So like the Nürburgring, love to do that.
So anything. I'd love. I always thought I'd love to be a race driver. My ex-husband was really into the WRC, the rallying, and we went to Spain to see the I can't remember what, Catalonia rally, and wow, oh my gosh! And I was like, that would be just the best.
Oh look, back in my first husband was in motorsport. He was a race mechanic, so I was in that world on the track. One of my first makeup jobs, actually, as a freelancer, but when I was still sort of working in salon, I did a superbike team because one of my friends just so happened to be a model. So I walked on into racetrack, and the rally was actually on that night.
Wow!
We'd done the shoot and got to sit with a cup of tea and a what was it? Hot dog, sitting there watching the rally. So it's a bit of an oxymoron considering, but I think there has to be balance with sustainability.
100%. Yeah, and knowing that you're not just one dimensional, realizing that in yourself sometimes is really important. To realize I'm not just my job, and I'm not just you can eat, sleep and breathe it, but still there is a you before and there's a you after. There always is a you before and a you after. And sometimes embracing and going back and going, okay, well, not necessarily become a race driver, but do a racetrack day, just fulfilling those little parts of your soul that are going to make you just a much stronger, more content person is actually going to probably help.
Oh, here's my dream job. Okay, so here's my dream job. Being part of what was the Top Gear crew, but being within the three with James May.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I used to watch that with my ex-husband, and I didn't watch it because he was watching it. I was the one saying, "Oh, you remember Top Gear's on tonight?"
Oh, love it.
Top Gear tonight? Yeah. That would have been a really good job. I reckon you'd have been really good at that too.
I could have been the Stig.
You could have been. Who's to say you weren't?
Well, now.
Well, that's an exclusive, isn't it? Finally, it's all revealed. Oh, Sam, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today for a second time. And we didn't even cover a tenth of what we covered when we talked the last time. So we are going to have to do this an awful lot more because, like we've spoke about, the menopause brain and I love the idea of doing a full episode on health and safety and the menopause and how to get through the menopause, even if it's only selfishly so that I can figure out how
Do
to
you know
get through
what?
menopause.
I am no expert in the menopause. I'm literally Davina McCall's book on Audible. That's like my Bible at the moment.
Well, I've got a few other people that are experts on menopause. I'm going to do a whole episode on it.
Oh, I'd love it. Yes,
and
please.
I'm like, I don't care if nobody else gets anything out of it. This is all about me, people. But thank you so much for talking to me today. And guys, like, listen, go out there, find Sam on Facebook, on join the FMP for starters. Just get there. That's point one. Start looking into what we've spoke about today, making sure that you are protecting yourself in your business, whether that be your physical health or getting the right risk assessments done. And follow Sam, because she really is just a mine of information. And like she says, just popping stuff on Facebook all the time that's very thought-provoking and makes you go, I haven't done that. I hadn't thought about that. So Sam, thank you. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It's been
You're
a pleasure.
very welcome.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Nailtopia Inside with the Insiders. If you have enjoyed it, you can show me your support by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/Nailtopia, where you can help keep me in Yorkshire tea and savvy bee, enabling me to keep chatting to nail industry insiders with the stories you just need to hear. You can also check out what else Nailtopia is about on both Facebook and Instagram.